Hello and thank you for joining us on this edition of Newsline, the last in the month of July. I can assure you, you are in for an interesting time. I am Jennifer Igwe. Honesty, they say, is the rarest wealth anyone can possess. True. But if you don't possess any form of wealth at all and come across $70,000 misplaced by someone, would you hold on to it or return it to the owner and uphold your integrity? How easy is the answer? You're smiling, right? A young lady's approach to the issue is mind-blowing, and why? Stay tuned to find out. Then, 200 in JAMB examination is quite an achievement for some. And scoring above 300 is indeed outstanding. So you can imagine what it is for Kamsiyochukwu Nkechinyere Ume, who had the highest score with 360. To encourage her soar higher, stay tuned to find out what philanthropist Chief Eric Omofia did. Now, last week we featured a woman who was sentenced to a life of starvation and confinement for 2 years by her husband and how she was rescued. Today, we have an update on how she is faring. We have other stories as well lined up that reflect our cultural values, celebration of love, and impactful initiatives by brands. But I have to pause here so that my colleague in Abuja, Claire Adelabu Abdurazak, will give us the news for the day. Hello, Claire.
Hello, Jennifer. Good to see you as always, and thank you. Hello, Jennifer. Good to see you as always. Hello and welcome to our studios in Abuja, and we begin with the news. ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government has demanded immediate release of President Mohamed Bazoum and restoration of constitutional order in the Republic of Niger. At an extraordinary session summoned by President Bola Tinubu in Abuja, the authority described the detention of President Bazoum as a hostage situation. State House correspondent Musbao Danwahab reports.
Another political instability and security breach is a week old in Niger. A situation already claiming properties in jungle justice, even as some still nurse the fear for the looming day of reckoning in the hands of the unconstitutional masters. There is a desperate situation in a sister West African nation. A desperate measure is needed, and ECOWAS heads of states and governments are the immediate friends in need. The situation is a test of resolve of ECOWAS under a new leadership of President Tinubu that has promised zero tolerance for coup d'etat in the sub-region.
I want us to be strong, forceful, and resolute about the survival of Bazoum, as well as the freedom and restoration of the constitutionally elected body in the Nigerian Republic. But no more time for us to sign up warning signals. It's time for action, and we should walk our talks.
Beyond condemnation of the unconstitutional takeover of power and detention of a democratically elected president, ECOWAS says it is ready to wield the big stick on the military junta.
In the event the authorities' demands are not met within 1 week, take all measures necessary to restore constitutional order in the Republic of Niger. Such measures may include the use of force. To this effect, the chiefs of defense staff of ECOWAS are to meet immediately. In the meantime, the following measures are to be applied with immediate effect. 1. Closure of land and air borders between ECOWAS countries and Niger. 2. Institution of ECOWAS no-fly zone on all commercial flights to and from Niger. Suspension of all commercial and financial transactions between ECOWAS member states and Niger. freeze all service transactions, including energy transactions. Freeze assets of the Republic of Niger in ECOWAS central banks. Freeze of assets of the Niger state and the state enterprises and parastatals in commercial banks. Suspension of Niger from all financial assistance and transactions with all financial institutions, particularly EBRD and BOAD.
The military junta has a weak ultimatum to yield to the demands of a regional bloc or face thereof. Other international agencies, including United Nations and African Union, also align with the resolve of ECOWAS.
And so ECOWAS and its allies have backed loudly coming from Abuja. But whether the authority will bite hard, like promised by President Bola Tinubu during his inaugural speech, remains to be seen. From the State House, Mutbao and Wahab, NTA News.
Well, Musbao, we will find out in just a moment as Professor Sunday Ochoche joins me live in the studio here, and he is Professor of Peace and Security Studies. He's also the Executive Director, IJA Consult. Professor Ochoche, thank you for joining me. You heard the first question from our correspondent, SEDA's correspondent. So let's quickly begin by looking at the impact of what happened in Niger on the stability of the West African sub-region. Do you think that members can afford to be complacent this time around?
Thank you very much. Peace, security, it's such a connected thing, and the insecurity of any member, the instability at any area, any sector of West Africa affects everybody. And I can understand the urgency with which the heads of state of the ECOWAS Commission are moving fast to address the situation. So there's no question. Look, we've had a coup in Guinea, we've had in Mali, we've had in Burkina Faso, and sometimes it is contagious, and so every other person has reason to really worry about the developments and the likelihood that it will spread to other places. And it's not just about the government that is affected. It is going to be every other thing. There is a security dimension for Nigeria, for all the neighboring states, for the whole of West Africa. So it is something to worry about, definitely for the whole of ECOWAS.
Let's look at the decisions and, of course, the raft of measures taken by ECOWAS at the moment. Do you think ECOWAS has finally, started to bite, just as our correspondent asked earlier on?
Well, ECOWAS has a history of intervening in many conflicts in West Africa. We know about Liberia, we know about Sierra Leone, but the circumstance in Niger is very different from what had happened before in Liberia and Sierra Leone. Yes, ECOWAS has demonstrated capacity to act. And in many respects, you can say that ECOWAS has spent more time, fighting the fires and promoting peace and security than actually the economic integration it was originally set up to do. However, a lot of the measures she has put in place may be difficult to implement. Some of the non-forceful or military component, Niger is a little bit vulnerable in some directions, if you want to say. It is a landlocked country. It is a heavily aid-dependent country. It is a poor country. So some of the measures ECOWAS is taking, it has the confidence, and the strength to begin to do those because of some of these vulnerabilities. And it may affect, or not may, it will certainly to some extent affect a lot of things internally. But as for the military component, I don't know how that is going to really make some difference. If we take again the Liberia or Sierra Leone situation, at the time ECOMOC or ECOWAS intervened, you had a legitimate government support in place fighting terror groups, and so ECOWAS went in support of legitimate politically legitimate constitutional governments in place fighting rebels. The Niger situation is one now that the armed forces of the nation are aligned with the plotters, and so if ECOWAS goes in, it's not just going to fight the junta, it's going to fight the national army. It's not going to fight a rebel group. And where are those troops going to come from right now in West Africa?
But Professor Cheche, indeed, it's not just ECOWAS that's against what has happened in Niger. The AU has also condemned the EU, the United Nations, the US, and all that.
Yes.
With this strength, of support for ECOWAS, what do you think might happen?
Yes, the UN has no troops. AU has no troops. They are going to depend on member states to raise troops. They can support financially because it's an expensive venture. The UN can support, EU can provide the financial support. I can assure you no non-African country is going to put boots on ground in Niger. It's going to have to depend on other African countries to put the boots on ground in Niger. So, yes, AU doesn't really have the history as such, or the experience, or demonstrated that resolve and capacity in the past to be able to do what he's saying. Is giving them 15 days. After that, so what? ECOWAS has given 1 week. After that, so what? And especially when you look at the current situation in other West African countries where the coups have happened. What has happened to Burkina Faso? What has happened to Mali? And so, to what extent are you going to take some of these determined steps that ECOWAS is saying now in Niger? And even then, the putting together of troops doesn't happen within 1 day. It's going to take a while. And during that period, the current government will simply be stabilizing and digging deep. And you are coming also to fight the citizens where it appears there's a general, it may be misplaced, it may be a misplaced excitement, but there is a general atmosphere of support by the citizens for the coup at the moment.
Professor Sunday Cheche, just one last question for you, and that will be the place of Nigeria in all of these. Remember, Nigeria is leading ECOWAS stance against what has happened in Niger. At the other end, there's also diplomatic relationship that Nigeria has, with long-lasting indeed, with the Republic of Niger. So how should Nigeria, tread at this point in time?
Nigeria is quite close. Culturally, politically, diplomatically, we've had very strong ties with Niger. And right now, yes, Nigeria is privileged to be chairing ECOWAS. So from all angles. And I think this is opportunity really for Nigeria to recover from what has been years of total lapse in its hegemonic role in West Africa. ECOWAS, West Africa, the whole of Africa, for long had looked forward and missed the Nigerian leadership, political leadership. And we hope that this is an opportunity for Nigeria to forge and develop appropriate response mechanisms. And we really need to be very critical. We need to be, very sound and realistic with our approaches. We cannot, we cannot completely throw away the people that are coming in now. There's going to be a lot of room for negotiations, a lot of conversations
a lot of room for negotiation. Professor Sunday Cheche, I think we'll just leave it at that. And indeed, negotiation is one of the alternatives to resolving conflicts. Thank you very much, Professor Sunday Cheche, Executive Director, IJA Consult, and of course, Professor of Peace and Security Studies.
Thank you.
In other stories, former President of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, and the diplomatic corps in Nigeria are urging the African Union, AU, to strengthen all democratic structures to deter resurgence of coup d'etat in Africa. Mr. Mbeki was speaking at the 5th lecture series of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, organized by Association of Foreign Relations Professionals of Nigeria. Garba Natala reports.
The lecture, virtually joined by the former South African president, centered on the theme, examining the nexus between foreign policy goals and democratic governance.
Africa has level which are articulated through the African Union and the regional economic community.
Call upon our African leaders.
Speakers unanimously agreed on resilient approaches in addressing the root causes of every conflict on the continent.
The politics and governance in their countries are inclusive and free as to promote peace and stability.
We should do much, much more. For this is the time Nigeria needs a very strong foreign policy lead, not only of ECOWAS, not only of Africa, but the world.
We have equally presented position papers to government on the issue of resurgence of military takeover of power in our sub-region. We have also participated in the process of resetting our foreign policy agenda to a smart format.
They tasked state governments to always employ expertise of foreign relations experts in sustaining democratic governance to accelerate development and ensure stability across the continent. In Abuja, Garba Muhammad Atala, NTA News.
Let's take you to the National Assembly now, where President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, restates his unwavering commitment to serve in the best interests of Nigerians. He's also hopeful that the ministerial nominees will, upon assumption of office after screening and confirmation, promptly address the challenges facing Nigerians. Reacting to a statement made during plenary on Wednesday, 26 July, while debating a motion on seeking a halt to the proposed increase of electricity tariff, Senator Akpabio, through his media office, clarified that the statement being credited to him by some sections of the media, "Let the poor breathe," was another member of the Senate. The Senate President assures citizens that all matters discussed at plenary sessions are of utmost importance and that comments made during the debate were never intended to make light of the hardships and economic challenge faced at this critical time. The statement adds that the motion got overwhelming support of the Senate as it firmly disagrees with any plan to increase electricity tariff. And the Adamawa State Police Command has arrested 80 suspects in connection with looting and destruction of the central stores by hoodlums. This was disclosed when a government delegation and security commanders monitored compliance to the 24-hour curfew imposed in the state. Yusuf Chika reports.
Large number of people in Yola Sunday morning broke some warehouses and carted away food items and other valuables. The development necessitated the Deputy Governor of the state, Professor Kaletapo Farota George, led the service commanders to inspect the compliance of the curfew imposed and condemn in totality the act of the perpetrators, saying that government is committed to distribute the palliative to the people to cushion the effects of the hardship.
They are our children, they are our youth and the future of this state and this nation. And as parents, when we see such things, not just as government officials, we feel sad because these are the people who will be handing over Adamawa State to in the next generation.
She called on the people of the state to remain calm and be law-abiding citizens as necessary measures are being put in place to improve on their living condition. Commissioner of Police Adamawa Command Tola Folabi said number of arrests have been made in connection with the looting and destruction of the facility.
Yeah, we put executive measures on ground to foster the police, the Nigerian Army, the DSS, the civil defense. We put every measures to make sure that this place was not broken into, but unfortunately they had to break the fence for them to gain access to the warehouse.
The inspection to some key areas in the state capital is not only to assess the level of compliance of the curfew, but to calm the situation and preach the gospel of peace for sustainable development. The situation in Yola is non-calm, with streets deserted in compliance with the curfew order. In Yola, Yusuf Jika, NTA News.
And to improve productivity in the workplace, hard work and dedication must be rewarded. Now, recognizing commitment to service, President Bola Tinubu says this will be sustained through the Civil Service Awards and Recognition Scheme under the Federal Civil Service Strategy and Implementation Plan 2021 to 2025. The President stressed this during the award and gala night to commemorate the 2023 Civil Service Week. Haman Jabani was there.
The second in the series of the Civil Service Award and Recognition Scheme under the Federal Civil Service Strategic and Implementation Plan 2025-2023 has 32 winners under 5 categories that include the Presidential Distinguished Public Service Career Award for the overall winner, Presidential Civil Service Merit Award for the first runner-up, Head of the Civil Service of the Federation Commendation Award for second runner-up, Public Service Excellence Award, and Sports Achievement Award. President Bola Tinubu, who was represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, said the civil service will be empowered so as to fast-track the reforms in the service and encourage civil servants to drive government policies and programs.
I want you to know that this administration counts on the public service and the federal civil service in particular to deliver on its promise of a renewed hope. I trust that you will diligently follow with dedication and loyalty.
Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Folashade Yemi-Esan, said the Rewards and Recognition Scheme has been institutionalized in the Federal Civil Service as one of the key deliverables of Pillar 6 of the Federal Civil Service Strategic and Implementation Plan 2025.
Together, we can create an environment where every employee's contribution is valued, appreciated, and rewarded.
I stand here as a partner who will speak loudly for the civil service insofar as you keep performing.
All the 33 awardees were presented with 500,000 naira each under Ike Emokode Endowment Fund for the reward of civil servants. Haman Jabani, NTA News.
All right, it's time for sports, and Nigeria's the Tigress march on in Rwanda as they chase 4th successive women's Afro-Basket title. And just as Super Falcons await Ireland tests at the FIFA Women's World Cup on Monday. And for details, let's join Bade Adeleye on Sports Update.
Nigeria's senior women's basketball team, the Tigers, have qualified for the quarterfinals of the 2023 FIBA Women's Afrobasket tournament in Rwanda after beating Egypt 83-65 to ensure an early passage into the last 8. Ami Okonkwo led the scoring with 29 points and 13 rebounds. Morujanatu Musa also impressed with a 18-point contribution, with Nicole Enabose registering double figures with 10 points to her name. 5-time champions, the Tigers, have won the last 3 editions of the Women's Afrobasket. And to football, Nigeria's Super Falcons are now set to take on the Republic of Ireland in their last group game at the ongoing FIFA Women's World Cup Monday morning. The nighttime African champions currently top Group B with 4 points after a goalless draw with Canada and a 3-2 comeback win over co-host Australia in their first 2 games. A draw will be enough to guarantee Coach Randy Wardrum's side a spot in the next round. Meanwhile, Morocco's Atlas Lionesses continue to celebrate after recording their first ever win at the FIFA Women's World Cup. The North Africans, who pipped South Korea 1-0 in their second Group H match, have moved third on the log. It was a different story, however, for co-host New Zealand, who became the first host nation to crash out at the group stage of the Women's World Cup after playing a goalless draw with Group A winners Switzerland in their last group game, with Norway's 5-0 win over the Philippines sealing their progress as the second-best team from Group A. And finally, Max Verstappen came from 6th on the grid to lead teammate Sergio Perez home in a Red Bull 1-2 at the Belgian Grand Prix as the team claimed a record-extending 13th successive victory. Pole sitter Charles Leclerc held off the challenge of Lewis Hamilton in Mercedes to claim just his 3rd podium of the season for Ferrari. With Sports Update, Bade Adeleye, NTA News.
All right, we'll keep our fingers crossed while also praying for the Super Falcons march with Ireland tomorrow. Let's check Monday weather forecast for Abuja and the rest of the country.
The Monday's weather forecast. Most parts of the country are expected to be quite stable in mostly cloudy atmosphere, although there are still prospects of morning thunderstorms for parts of Katsina, Kano, Kaduna, Yobe, Jigawa, and Bauchi states. Parts of the Federal Capital Territory, Nasarawa, Kogi, and places down south, that is Imo, Edo, Delta, Ondo, Rivers, and Bayelsa, have prospects of light rains during the morning hours. As we go into the afternoon and evening hours, better prospects of rains anticipated down south, while isolated rains accompanied with thunder anticipated to most parts of the north central and the northern region of the country. That's all for the forecast. I am Theodoraitu. Thank you for watching.
All right, we are done with the news from this end. Jennifer Igwe will be back in just a moment with the other news from Lagos. Don't go away. Good evening.
Where is Glory? Excuse me, ma'am.